welcome back to Unapologetically Wild with me, Katie Sontag. We are at the fourth part of the series of my story in the military. Can you believe we have made it to part 4? If you have not already, go and listen to the first 3 parts. It is literally everything I lived in my 13 and a half years of my military experience, and it has both been therapeutic, healing, and also a lot to relive it. But I am very grateful because I hope, and I know from some people that have already communicated it to me, that there are things in there that will support you wherever you are on your journey, whether it's you're not in the military or you're looking at it, or you are in the military or you're on your way out, or you've, been a veteran. All of it gets to be true and you get to tell your story too. I love when people share that with me, and I am telling my story so that you know that you can do the same if you ever wish to, with whoever you wish to. It doesn't have to be on a public platform, but it can be anywhere, anytime, and you get to allow that to be a part of your journey and really honor that part of your journey as well. And that has been really what has come up for me, is that I wasn't honoring this part of me, and I actually wasn't allowing myself to let her be in all of what she learned. And it's been really beautiful to see how far I've come. I even had someone reflect that to me today, of remembering the shy girl who, they met when I first joined the army to the woman I am today, and they said how proud they were of me. So it's really beautiful. Oh, it's going to make me emotional. And this is why I share this, right? Because I think a lot of people don't honor their journey or ever look back. And I'm going to be honest with you, there are parts of you that you meet that you're like, whoa, wild. Was I really like that? Mm-hmm. But the beautiful part about that is when you honor those parts of you, you actually allow them to be free and to be a part of your story. And I think that's really beautiful. So part 4, can't believe we're here, and just so excited to jump in. Now, in true style, I don't 100% remember where I left off, so we're going to do a little mini recap just in case I missed parts of this. However, I do remember that I was talking deeply into a time when I was super burnt out, and I then moved to a new posting, and I had an incredible mentor, of course, my PI from Kapuga, who, if you had listened to the other episodes, has come up multiple times. He has been a mentor to me multiple times in my career at Kapuka, when I was doing my testing to become a PDI, and then he became my boss. And I think what beautiful moments to have someone who really made a big impact in my career, like constantly. It's wild how the universe does that, right? They bring someone in at the time when you need them, who you know, so you don't have to then go through that whole process. One of the things I find when you move so often in your career is that if you don't know the person, it's almost like you're starting a relationship again, because you have to get to know them. They have to get to know you. Also, there's an element where you want to do well, right? So you want to prove that you are good at your job. You also want to, be good at your job, right? You're not going to try and prove it if you don't want to be good at it. And part of the perfectionist and the good girl, you want to make sure you're doing everything right, and you're at a standard where you think, that's your standard and you don't want to ever drop that. It was a really big lesson to learn, but I'm grateful that I knew him. He knew me. We didn't have to start from the beginning. And I think that's a really beautiful piece, where he could honor and see how far I'd come, and where I was and what was different. And he honored the fact that I wasn't really okay. And we didn't really ever talk about it too much. Like, we did in parts, but it never really all needed to be mentioned. He could just tell, and he would do things like, he'd be like, okay, we're going to go out and train now, because I would just be like, I have to get all these things done, and I have to be, again, the high performer that I am. However, when you're so burnt out, you actually can't be that high performer. You still can get things done and you can still perform well. However, it's at a cost to your health, mentally, physically, and also, you just don't realize how much you've been holding underneath. So I'm really grateful that he was then my boss. And that was the time as well when was sitting there and I'd hit 10 years of army, and I actually put my head in my hands. I remember sitting in the chair being like, what am I still doing here? I wanted to leave by 10 years. That was my plan. And don't we love how the universe always likes to allow the plan to be very different to what we think it should be? And now it's so different. Obviously, I give a lot of my plans to God and universe, spirit guides, and let them take me on the journey. However, back then I was still, and I still obviously have moments of this where I go into control, if it doesn't look the way I think it should, or the way I want it to, it's very easy to default into that. So I think I was trying to hold on to that, and I'm grateful that he was there to be like, it's okay, you don't have to. Sometimes we need people in our lives who are that permission piece. And so that year was a lot more about allowing myself to come back to fitness. I'd hurt my back again in that year, which happens a lot when I get really stressed or I've got too much on, which is funny. You'd think it's because, and I always do it deadlifting, so wild. But of course, because, when your back is so tight, you're holding so much, you hold everything in your lower back. And now I understand the energetics and everything as well. I'm like, oh, of course, that's what goes. And it's just something that I have to be wary of. And it's always when there's too much going on, I'm trying to hold too much capacity, I'm stressed. It actually has nothing to do with whether I've been lifting or not. I could have done an incredible program, lifted really well. But if I'm not conscious of what else is going on in my life, that's when I do it. So it's so interesting. But I was like, what am I going to do? I remember I took all my girlfriends. Well, not all at once, but I would be like, we're going to this workshop. And they're like, okay, what is it? And I'm like, breath work. And then we get there and they're like, do you have a picture of yourself as a child? And I'm like, no. Oh God, we needed to picture ourselves as a child so we can write a letter. We're crying, writing this letter to a beautiful child. And I think it's such a beautiful practice. I think about it often, actually, how I would write this letter to this baby. I have a photo of me as a baby. It's very cute. And it was like just apologizing for being so mean all the time, in my brain and what I would say and all the things. And I think that's part of the burnout, is refinding yourself, but also allowing yourself to grieve. I would do breath work and I would cry and I would just be feeling like I was letting go of years of suppressed feelings towards everything, myself, people around me, the army, a lot of just not expressing myself. And so that year was a beautiful year where I had a really, really chill posting. We were in a really great location. And so, we could go to the beach and run beach sessions, and we could do lots of different things, which allowed me to recuperate and also learn a lot. We did courses in that time too. Sometimes I think a posting like that is perfect for the fact that you can catch up on your promotion courses, and that's really handy to get them done. And we just meant that we could do our job and I could run out and run my lessons, and I really loved the crew there. I got to meet some really cool people and I had a really supportive boss. So we made sure we looked after ourselves. And, coming from such a big posting where I don't even really know how I got through it, but it was a really nice change to have that. And I find that in postings, you can have a really hectic one, and then hopefully, if you're lucky, you get a chilled one, which actually kind of offsets and balances you out a bit. And then during that year, I remember I was like, oh, cool, I'll just finish my 3 years here. It's amazing as a corporal. And then I had the honor of being asked if I would be a sergeant. And at the time, I'm not going to lie to you, I did not think it was an honor. And I was like, oh my God, I never wanted this. And so my boss talked me into it. He was like, you can do it, you'll be fine. It was more around the leader that was there at the time, who would have been my leader, and my boss. And I was like, I don't think I can. And he was like, you should take it. It's a prime opportunity. It meant I could stay in Sydney, which is very lucky. And so I took it, and I'm really grateful I did. I ended up getting a new boss, and he had actually also run a business outside and come back. They'd sold it and then come back into the army. Really knowledgeable man, incredibly, just very smart, very capable. Again, like the boss I'd, just come from at my last posting for that year. I got promoted and I was like, okay. The funny part about it, actually, I got promoted by someone throwing me a rank slide across the table. I honestly never technically got promoted before that. It was all on PM keys and all very legit. That's the system that we use. However, no one had really they'd just forgotten, I guess. I wasn't mad. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not really big on ceremonies, but it was a really, interesting piece. So I rocked in with everything, my stripes on. I just owned it. And I mean, I was already in the position. I already had the promotion everywhere else. I just hadn't been given it. So I ended up walking in there, did it, and my boss was so appalled. He was like, oh my God, I can't believe they didn't promote you. And so he went out of his way to make sure that they did promote me and did it in a location near my family. And that was really special that my parents and my grandmother could be a part of that. And that was a really beautiful night too. That was later on in the year that they did actually finally promote me, which was so funny. Anyway, I couldn't stop laughing. I just thought it was hilarious. I think after everything, I was like, it's not that it doesn't mean much, because I know that when you go into becoming a senior NCO from a junior, it is a really big step and it's a really different environment to be in. And I'm really grateful that I got to experience that, because I actually didn't understand. You never do until you go through something. But I then got to have, a corporal that I looked after, and I got to not only build my business on the side, but I also got to use all the skills I was learning on how to be the leader that I wanted to be. So doing neuro-linguistic programming, where you reprogram the mind, I realized how many terrible things I say to myself. And then I realized that that's kind of, that happens around you and we all do it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to show you a different style of leadership, a style where I'm going to be honest with you. Some days I'm not great, and some days I want to cry, and some days I feel amazing. And, I want you, who was my corporal at the time, I wanted her to tell me as well. If she had a shit day, I wanted her to be able to feel comfortable to tell me. And so that was really amazing. We also were very alike, and that was very aligned. And my boss as well. So the three of us were very close, and really, had a really great posting. We got everything done we needed. We made sure we looked after ourselves and each other. And I remember once we even had this disagreement. It was awesome. And we all had different perspectives around, something we were talking about. The best part was everyone expressed their feelings, and then we all went to train, and then we came back and we were all like, oh, I actually now understand where you were coming from. And I just love that, because I think it's interesting when you go up a level in leadership, you don't see the perspective that you saw before, right? Because you can't, you're not there anymore. And it made me realize that these conversations are really, really important, because although I've been a corporal, at that time I may not have experienced the same thing that my corporal is at the time that she receives the information. So I need to understand that, and also understand the delivery. And then my boss had a whole different view that I didn't have. And so we were all having these talks, but it made sense to where we were in the leadership chain. However, none of us had thought of the other person's experience, because we were in our own, right? It's very normal for that to happen. And it showed me a lot about how when you understand each other, you actually get a lot more out of each other, and you also get to support each other better. And I think that was just a beautiful posting where we all had lots of things. Like my corporal, she was doing a uni degree. I was starting a business. My boss, his family was very important to him, which I think was so beautiful, still is. But it's like we all got to not only do our jobs well, but we were efficient. We made sure that we got everything done. And we also had things that we got to have time for. And I think that's really important because the military doesn't always give you a good balance of life. And we were very big on that, really big on being honest with each other, open. If people needed things, you could, if you needed leave or if you had something going on or, you know, extenuating circumstances or things that you needed us to know, like that was important and we needed to know. So I think that was really beautiful. The open lines of communication, the ability to support each other in more ways than one. And that was a really big leadership journey for me. I think to be so well supported as well. I love this thing too where you allow someone to kind of go out there, give it a whirl, almost like they make the joke of you let someone walk out and then, they either sink or swim, right? So the best part about that is if you sink, you learn a lesson and you go to your boss and you go, okay, I tried this and I sunk. And you could call it failure. I call it lessons. And then you can ask them how they would have done it. Because here's the thing. You can also go and ask them first and then try their way. Sometimes, though, I think it's more fun to be experimental and go and try your own way. And that can be hard for leaders to watch. Trust me. But we have to let it happen. And that's where that control piece is really rough, especially. And I will admit there were times when I didn't do that well. There were times when I remember we had a fitness leader course and I was watching someone instruct. And so for me, for a bit of context, instructing is my thing. So everyone has a thing, right? Like some people are really good at, my corporate was really good at programming. That was not really my thing. I love taking lessons. Like I see that there's an art to them. And I think that there is a really good way to be a great lesson taker. And there's a way to be a mediocre lesson taker. And there is an incredible art to it. There's so much. And I loved lessons when I was at Kapuka. I loved lessons when I was at the school. And that was what drew me to watching their ability to move big groups of people on a dime, like a quick word and, everyone moves. And when it's done really well and effectively, to watch a class is seamless. And I love that. I love the ability. I mean, maybe it's a bit about the control. You could laugh and say that maybe I really loved that. And I remember I was watching this person give a class and it was killing me because I just had a totally different level of where I thought instructors should be. And here's the thing. I came from instructing for years, whereas some of the other, when you come through, not everyone goes straight to a training establishment where they instruct consistently for years, right? So there's definitely a difference between someone who's been at a training establishment as a PTI than someone who hasn't. You can just tell that they don't train the skills as much and they're not as direct and moving classes not as efficient. And that's no detriment to them. That's actually just the fact that they don't do it consistently for a couple of years, so they don't train the skill and hone it. And that was the difference. Was I was so used to that and I was so used to the standard being perfect, as we know, little perfectionist over here. And so I then was like, I want a demo. And my boss was laughing, watching me itch at it. And he was the same because he came from a training establishment too. So we were both itching to demo. Well, him not demo, but him watch me demo. And so he's like, do you want to go out and do it? And I was like, yeah, of course. So anyway, I went out and I was like, here's what I'm going to show you with a number 2. And I was like, can you be my number 2? Or I got someone to be a number 2. And I just loved it. The energy, the ability to control, command, all these things, right? And I was like, that's a lesson. Everyone was like, oh my God. So yeah, it's kind of interesting how that shaped me as an instructor. But that's another time where you kind of sometimes you got to be like, oh, let go of control. Now, there was a point to that. We made me for that course, I was the course manager so that I didn't get in and instruct. I did end up instructing a bit because we lost a few people to instruct, unfortunately, but fortunately for me because I loved it. And it's funny when you get into management and you're no longer in the nitty-gritty of it as much, and to let go of control is quite a feat. But it was good for me, and I think it was cool to see that I got to also empower my corporal to do things that she wanted to do, to watch what that looked like, to watch, you know, she could watch me fail or slip or learn and then learn from the boss. And then I could watch her do something and either succeed or fail or whatever happened, we could talk about it. It just showed that it gets to be a learning experience for everyone at all levels, no matter what. And I think having a team like that is so incredible and so good at performing. We had some horrendous things happen outside of our group throughout that time. We had to deal with other instructors that were, I'm going to say, and this is just my personal opinion, that were going through things and then it meant that they would have an effect on us, unfortunately. Some anger management stuff, some things where I didn't feel incredibly safe in our office. And unfortunately, that also resulted in some of the civilians not feeling safe and leaving the job. So, because we had civilian staff in the gym, and that was actually really, really hard. I remember going with one of the girls to see the MPs, the military police, and we gave the statements and nothing ended up happening from her chain through to our chain. Well, we never saw anything until that person eventually got taken away, but now they've been put back in the job because we all left. And that may not be the reason. There may be other things, but unfortunately it was coincided with when we had left that person went back into the job. So I find that really hard with the military. While I was there, I remember this was the time when I found my voice, really, like I really did. I feel like when my first year as a sergeant, I was kind of obviously learning, you're looking around, you're trying to work out how you want to do this. And then as I got, I'm going to say I became more cunty because I actually realized that these people were walking around making decisions about people's careers. And because they had the rank to do so, they felt the need that they could just say and do whatever they wanted to make these people do things or get rid of them, or, because if they didn't pass physical testing. There was so many times when, I stood toe to toe with commanding officers and I wouldn't back down. And I was not being rude, you can still address them correctly and just speak about doctrine and not sway into anything emotional. But that was when I realized that I just was sick of having the same fight and bashing my head against a wall. And even if I'd gone up in rank, I could sit in rooms and listen to horrible things being said about people in medical spaces because people didn't agree with what was happening, yet they had no idea about the mental, physical effects that could be on that person, and I didn't either. I couldn't really make comment. I would just be in the room and be like, why am I listening to this? A officer somebody who is in charge of this person should not be able to say these things about this person at all. It should be medical in confidence. And so I just was sitting there so many times hearing the language as well. Like doing NLP did not help because I could hear the language that everyone was using and how detrimental it was. I could feel the environment. Although I was really lucky to have incredible people in my immediate environment of my unit, there were lots of other people on the outside that weren't the same. So we were the three that, could hold it all together for each other. But as I was there, I just felt like I just didn't have as much passion for the job because I felt like I was fighting. And I wanted to fight for these people because I felt like nobody else could, or maybe they just didn't get the chance. They weren't in the right position. You're always put in a position for the right reason. And I think to be the person that could stand up for some of these people and take them to see military police, to take them to get help, to do something for them felt really empowering. I also know that a lot of people thought I was the angry one and they wouldn't actually come approach me. It was quite funny, because I would tell people how it was, and I was sick of people beating around the bush or, asking for exceptions because they thought they could. And so I think I was really lucky that I was balanced out by my boss and the couple I had underneath me and some other people around so that they could be the nice people. I know that sounds bad. I actually was really nice, but it just depended on what you were coming to me for. And I think the thing with that is that you have to work out who you want to be. And I think by then I had realized that I wanted to be someone who definitely could help you, but I wasn't here to fix it for you. And here's the difference, this is why I went into coaching, is I wanted to work with high-performing people who understood that they have to do the work and they have to, I'm not gonna hold their hand through everything. I'm happy to support people, be their biggest cheerleader, do the things that are gonna help them get there, give them the plan. However, I'm not always gonna be there to walk every step with them. And I'll fight for anyone. However, I also need them to fight for themselves to a degree as well. So it's just this really interesting thing where it's like, I think I used to give so much energy to everyone all the time, and I would never honor it myself for me and have really good boundaries. And so that last 3 years, I really learned how to balance that. I also got to practice being a feminine in a male-dominated industry, which I had never done before. And I think I got to practice just being in my essence and my femininity and being a powerful queen, I'm going to put it as, because I got to be soft. I got to ask for help. And I remember I used to, be so I don't need any help, right? And then I allowed myself, some of the guys would come up to me and be like, hey, do you want help setting up? I'd be like, yeah, I'd actually love that. And I got to learn to receive and be supported and see how beautiful it gets to be when men and women work together in a, we're going to say a male-dominated industry, but actually how we support each other. And it's really beautiful to see that. And I was so lucky I got to go on my 4-month long service leave. I decided to take a trip to Nepal on a whim, and I had this incredible time, went to Tony Robbins, I got to some really cool things. And I remember when I walked in, I knew the moment that I wanted to take it. I walked in and my boss was, kind of saying that people had been talking about me above and brought him in and said that my social media had things of posting in the gym. I laugh because all of those people also had lots of posts from gyms in the military, but we do sign a social media thing. And they all had them too. And they were worried about mine, which was hilarious. And that's when I knew I was outgrowing the space. Even my boss knew that I was never going to get what I needed being in the military. I was never going to, I was going to just come up against these people who, and that's life, right? Not everyone's going to like me, and that's totally okay. And I think I had to get used to that. That was kind of the beginning of people aren't going to like you and people are going to say shit. And it was wild, but you just need to also honor your energy and what you need. And I started to learn these things and realize that, the army wanted you to be on all the time and take everything home with you, and it became it was your whole reality. And I just think I was I don't want this to be my whole reality. I'm cool to be in the army and I love it, and I love running PT and being able to support people and teach them how to take lessons. I loved having on the job training people for PT and taking them out and teaching them lessons, and it was totally my jam. And I think I was just I don't know what else I have to give here. And I don't know if I'm going to be fulfilled doing it. And I feel sometimes in that spot too, you don't ever want to be the person that is in the job that isn't loving it anymore. And I think I struggled to see that I couldn't be that person that wasn't going to start being negative, right? And that's just the honest truth. And so I went on long service leave. My boss was sad that these guys had made comment, and he was like, "I'm so sorry to tell you." And I was like, "You know what? I think this is when I go on long service leave, when I have a break. I think I work out what this is gonna look like." I had the most incredible time on long service leave. It was the best. But like everything has to come to an end. And I remember going back to work and I was like, holy crap. And no one thought I was coming back. Like genuinely I had the best time, that everyone was like, oh, she's never coming back. Like she's not coming back to army ever. And then I came back. Wild. For me too. I did not think at the time, I was not ready, my nervous system, to leave. I actually was really scared because obviously I still had a full-time income. My business was still building. I didn't really know what that would look like leaving the army. So I stayed for another 18 months. Was it the right decision? Yes, obviously everything in life happens for a reason. I'm really grateful. Without the two of them, my corporal and my woe, I wouldn't have stayed. They were pivotal in the fact that I would love to come to work to see them and support them, and they supported me so much. So I built my business on the side and I allowed myself to grow with it. And there's been, there were so many bumps and bruises and trying to work it all out. And I definitely had to work out what was right for me. I remember I went down to 4 days in army, and that was the best decision, to have every Monday off, I think. So it was really cool. And, you take a cut to your pay and all the other things, but well worth it for the fact that I had a day extra in my business. And I knew once I'd started cutting down that it was only a matter of time. And I remember I went away for a retreat with my new coach and mentor at the time. And I was in the room with multi-millionaires, like fucking wild that I was in that room. I still to this day pinch myself because I was in this mastermind with these incredible women. And I remember sitting there and they were like trying to show me all these ways that I could make so much money so I could leave the military, because everyone was like, your soul is like leaving. And I was like, I know, it's like running out the door. It has been for a while. And I felt bad because I felt like I wasn't all in on army, and I was still, giving a lot of energy to both. But I was tired and I was really done. And I was holding on for a paycheck. And that's the honest truth. And that's not fair to everyone around me either. So I remember I went to the retreat, and I remember that, they asked me so many things and to check in, and I went back to work and I was like, I'm going to leave. So funny. And my boss had been waiting forever. They all had, for me to put my discharge in. Everyone had been waiting, but because of financial reasons, I just kept not doing it. But I had to leave at the end of the year anyway because I was due to post out. So I knew that it was my last year no matter what, because I was like, I can't go to another posting, meet new people, do this all again. So anyway, I remember I came back and I was like, I'm going to put in my discharge. Do you think I put in my discharge? No. I think it was only that week though, or maybe the week later, where I had a call with the same mastermind group, and they were like, have you left? And I was like, no. And I remember my coach asked me a question, and she was like, what is your body telling you and your soul telling you right now? Like, not your head. Don't think logically. And I know this is a really contentious issue because some people are really like, you should, stay in your full-time job, build your income on the side, all the things. I don't disagree. I actually think that's a really smart strategy in life. And though my soul had left and I was ready, and I think everyone was just watching me be there but not really be there. And I felt bad because in a capacity of leadership and being with people, I was trying to build this beautiful woman to take over my job because that was the plan. And, I felt like I had done well, but, also being absent is not helpful for her, physically, mentally, whatever you want to call it, spiritually. And so I finally was like, it's saying I have to get out of here. And I made a choice. I made a really bold, crazy choice. A lot of people in my position would have been like, No. A lot of people, I'm sure, if saw my everything I had, going for me and not going for me, would have been like, "Why the fuck did you do that?" To this day, I have never on maybe another podcast, I'll divulge it, but yeah, it was really interesting. So, I took the leap. I remember going into my boss and giving him my discharge and you have 3 months to sort your life out, which you think is a long time, but it's really not. And I'm gonna do another episode on what it was like to leave because I think that gets to be its own and the 12 months following. I'm gonna do another one. Not maybe next month when it's, officially 12 months, but yeah, wild times. Anyway, I'm gonna leave that for another time, but I hope you got something out of today's episode. I would love to hear all about it. Please let me know, what resonated with you, anything that came up for you, what you learned, and I would love if you could subscribe. We're trying to get to 100 subscribers. That's the aim. I don't know if I've said that on this podcast on YouTube. Well, any platform really, but I would love to get to 100 subscribers on YouTube. That would be very fun. We're at 42, which is very exciting. So please subscribe, support us, support the content so it can keep going out to more and more beautiful people so that, so we can keep sharing and keep putting it out there. I would love if you also like this podcast, if you comment, if you want to send me a DM, unapologetically wild with Katie on Instagram. Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, on Instagram. So please, if you share it with someone, you want to tag us, that would be amazing. I'd love to be able to share that. And yeah, I think that is all. I am so grateful that you listened to my story. Thank you for being a part of this 4-part series. If you haven't listened to the other parts, I would absolutely love if you do. And yeah, I hope you have a magical, magical day. And I'm sending you so much love and light, and keep being unapologetically you and unapologetically wild. Bye.